Just trying to survive and learn to love along the way by Foreplay on AO3. Episode 41, Chapter 41, of Villains and Victims. Something is not right. Shouta rushes out of the classroom at the strange noises, leaving Vlad King in charge of their students. The forest is smoky. It gets thicker the further he goes, so he brings his goggles up over his eyes before adjusting a scarf over his mouth. He runs, mindful of his breathing, and nearly collides with a student. They seem to be fine, so Shouta sends them back to the cabin and continues on. He makes sure to stay vigilant. The forest wouldn't spontaneously combust, so who the hell set the fire? Villains is the most likely answer. But how the hell did they find the place? The school had only chosen the location the day before they left, and only a few pros know about it. Only a handful of people not present know where they are. And no matter how stupid Shouta thinks All Might is, the man isn't a traitor. So how? He tries to come up with someone who would betray them like that. But Shouta knows his students well enough to be confident that it's not one of them. One of Vlad's kids, then? He doesn't know his class all that well. Or at all, really. It's not long before he encounters a student that's not fine. They're leaning up against a tree, breathing heavy through all the smoke. They look just about ready to pass out, so Shouta lightly throws them over his shoulder before heading back the way he came, gathering up more students as he goes. They support each other, many students sporting some sort of minor injury. A few of his own students join the group on the way back to camp, and the group grows to 15 before they reach the outskirts of the forest, right where the smoke should be getting thinner. It doesn't. But there's no way Shouta took a wrong turn, so he quickens his pace a little. He exits the forest and hands his charge to another student before sprinting forward. The cabin that holds the class is on fire. A few students hang around, staring up at the flames, but he doesn't spot any of the ones he left behind. He heads for the door and runs into Vlad, who's frantically tugging on the handle. Vlad, where are the kids? The man just looks at him, a grim look on his face as he shakes his head. Fuck! Shouta uses his scarf to tear open the door, and he sprints inside, using his memory to guide him towards the classroom. He hears Vlad's loud footsteps behind him, but he ignores them, instead focusing on his internal map of the place. The smoke gets worse the closer they get to the classroom. Shouta takes a deep breath as he pushes the door open, careful not to draw attention to himself. The room is on fire. Most of his students stranded, huddled in the center of the room, where Sato lies a little further away. There's a villain standing right in front of them, holding Kirishima up by the throat, a flaming hand by his red face. Well, I thank you for your cooperation. The villain moves his hand closer to his student's face, and that's all it takes to snap into action. He activates his quirk not a moment too soon. The second after he does, the villain's hands make contact with Kirishima's face. The villain turns towards them when his flame goes out and pouts. Fortunately, the flame crowding the walls and roof die as well, leaving the room smoky, but fire-free. Ah, Eraserhead, why did you have to ruin my fun? His students all turn towards him, looks of relief on their faces. I'd appreciate it if you stepped away from my students. The villain actually complies, dropping his hand from Kirishima's face as he goes. His hand around his throat stays where it is. The boy's eyes are closed, and Shouta can see where his lips are starting to turn blue from the lack of oxygen. All of them. He sends a meaningful look towards Kirishima, and the villain follows his gaze. Oh, my bad, Eraser. It's said with a smile, and the villain doesn't give his student a second look before he tosses him in Shota's direction. He catches Kirishima and quickly lowers him to the ground, moving to check his vitals, while Vlad hopefully keeps an eye on the villain. He's very carefully checks the pulse point on his wrist, wary of touching the boy's throat, but also trying his best to avoid the numerous burns on his arms. Kirishima lurches up, nearly smacking his head into Shota's where he leaned over him. His student is coughing and gasping for breath, hands reaching for his throat. Shouta stops their progress, and Kirishima's eyes snap open. He relaxes at the sight of his teacher, and Shouta gently places him on the floor, before standing and facing the villain. He nudges past Vlad and strides out with the scarf. The villain ducks out to the side, and Shouta has to alter his move quickly to avoid hitting his students. The space is too confined for a proper fight, and the villain clearly knows that. Vlad works his way around the classroom, making his way towards the kids. The villain pays him no mind, attention drifting between Shouta and the kids, clearly deciding that Vlad isn't a threat. He raises a hand towards the students, and Shouta is quick to reactivate his quirk. The villain frowns at him, and Vlad keeps from where he's moving too, effectively knocking him to the ground. He's quick to immobilize him with his blood, and the villain slumps down, a defeated frown on his face. Shouta rushes to Satoru, who's still unmoving on the ground. He's a black mess of burnt skin, and the back of his head is almost unrecognizable. He carefully flips him over and frowns. The boy's eyes are open, distant, and unseeing. He checks for a pulse, just to be sure, and finds nothing. Is he okay? He looks up and finds Mina, a hopeful look in her eyes. He just shakes his head. Her face falls, and she turns away, in some sort of attempt to regain composure. Shouta takes a moment to check out the other students' injuries. Kaminari and Mina have a few burns, lining their arms and legs, while Sero and Monoma are practically unscathed. His 3 students are huddled together, while Vlad's kid stands a bit further away. There's a loud groaning sound, and a piece of ceiling falls. Fuck. We need to get out of here. At least most of them are relatively uninjured. He looks over to Kirishima and finds him struggling to stand, hand hovering near his throat as he continues to take gaps of breath. Vlad, I need you to carry Sato. The man nods and steps away from the villain, picking up his student's body as careful as he can. Monoma, Sero, you guys need to help Mina and Kaminari. Monoma reluctantly wraps his arm around Kaminari's waist, while Sero looks more than happy to help his classmate. Shouta whips out his scarf, wrapping the villain up. He turns and heads over to Kirishima, dragging his scarf behind him. He offers his arm to the boy. Here, you could lean on me. Kirishima latches on with shaking fingers, and Shouta begins to lead the way out of the building, Vlad taking the rear of the group. When they make it outside, there is a much larger group of kids than there was before. He tries to locate all his students, and finds almost all of them. Only Izuku, Bakugou, Yaoyorozu, and Todoroki are nowhere to be found. It looks like all Vlad kids have returned, so it's only those 4 that are missing. He heads towards where some of the pussycats are hurting the injured students, and helps Kirishima sit. He starts to move away, but the boy just clenches his arm harder. Sensei, wait. He breaks off coughing, voice raspy and sounding dry. Shouta faces him and finds a worried frown on his face. They're after Izuku and Katsuki. Wow, we love that. That was an interesting hang off. Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, he's dead. He did. I kind of wanted a little more of a reaction from Shouta, but maybe we're gonna get that reaction later on. You know, maybe. Who knows? So, chapter 42 is called Of Quick Fights and a Rescue Attempt. I don't like how it said attempt. Not a rescue, it says attempt. Why does it not say rescue? Why does it say attempt? That is very specific wording. Why does it say attempt? I know, I'm gonna tell you guys straight up. If I ever say attempt, assume that it didn't fucking work out. If I say, oh, murder attempt, it didn't work out. It was an attempt, but it wasn't an actual murder. Or if I say rescue attempt, that means that the rescue did not go as planned and they did not rescue the person. They attempted to, but they didn't manage to rescue them. Therefore, something went wrong. Something happened there. And if so, be concerned. Because if I ever, Storm, what the fuck did you do? Now that I just realized everything is everywhere, where the fuck are my baked potatoes? I had half of a baked potato. Did you eat my baked potato? Oh my god. But whatever, point again is, I'm scared of the fact that it says attempt and not just rescue. Floor play? What is that about? Oh, what is that about? What is that about? Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content. And thank you so much for watching.